Picture this perfect scenario, because I know for a fact you have lived. It is roughly 2:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday. It is thundering rain outside, just completely miserable, grey, uncompromising weather. Biologically, historically, these are the absolute perfect conditions for doing exactly zero things. You are sitting on some beaten up, objectively uncomfortable couch or sofa or chair. You have a completely ridiculous fleece blanket pulled all the way up to your chin, a massive bowl of vaguely stale snacks resting precariously on your chest, and you have finally, after weeks of putting it off, decided to watch that movie that is gathering digital dust on your watch list for 6 months. Your physical body is completely stationary. You are, by all standard definitions, resting. But your brain is tweaking. It is redline. It is running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, generating this overwhelming, deafening, low-level hum of pure, unadulterated guilt. Your chest actually feels physically tight because even though you are physically off the clock, your internal monologue is just screaming at you, actively punishing you for wasting precious time. It is sitting there whispering in your ear, "Hey, you could be doing your laundry right now. You could be meal prepping your sad little chicken and rice for the week so you don't spend $15 on a sandwich on Tuesday. You could be working on that nebulous side hustle you've been talking about starting for 3 years. You could be listening to an educational podcast about real estate syndication on 1.5 times speed while doing some light dynamic stretching." And what happens? You pause the movie. You're maybe 20 minutes in, barely past the opening credits, and you stop it because you feel so intensely, deeply guilty that you are not being productive on your one single day. I'm just going to say what we're all thinking right now. You are not the only one completely fried like this. We have entirely, fundamentally lost the ability to just exist in a space without feeling like we are committing some sort of moral crime against our own potential. And think about how deeply broken that is. Think about the relentless psychological warfare that has been waged on our generation since we were literally children to get us to this specific point of mental paralysis. We have been completely, thoroughly brainwashed by a hyper-capitalist, toxic hustle culture that aggressively dictates a single rule. Every waking second of your life absolutely must have a return on investment. If you aren't leveling up, you aren't gaining XP, you are actively falling behind the pack. That is the meta we have been forced to play for 2 decades. School taught us to relentlessly chase the grade. College taught us to violently compete for the unpaid internship, and now we treat our actual fragile human lives like we are playing a grand strategy game on the absolute hardest difficulty, where we have to min-max every single character stat just to survive the winter. You spend your entire week, Monday through Friday, aggressively bleeding out your physical and emotional energy just trying to keep your head above water. You are working a job that probably doesn't even pay you enough to buy a house, that isn't actively falling apart, sitting under soul-crushing fluorescent office lights, or staring at a Zoom screen in your tiny apartment until your retinas start to burn, pretending to care about Q3 synergy deliverables. By the time Friday night hits, your social battery and your baseline dopamine levels are not just empty, they've been actively corroded. You are running on absolute fumes. You are fundamentally, biologically in need of deep restorative rest. But instead of letting you rest, the simulation throws a completely new, infinitely more stressful objective on your HUD: productive rest. This is the biggest scam of the 21st century. It is an absolute paradox. And we witness all of this funneled to our brains through Instagram, TikTok, X, Reddit, all these social media streams. It is an utter contradiction in terms, and we all collectively fell for it. Productive rest is this deeply insidious idea that even your downtime needs to be optimized for self-improvement and future monetization. You can't just lay in bed and watch a trashy reality show where terrible people scream at each other on a tropical island. You have to watch a grim 6-hour, incredibly dense historical documentary so you can at least feel like you are educating yourself and extracting learning value from your screen time. You can't just go for a slow, meandering walk around your neighborhood to look at the trees and breathe some air. You have to strap on a biometric heart rate monitor, track your exact step count, Calculate your VO2 max and listen to an audiobook about crypto economics on double speed. We have gamified our own relaxation to the point where it feels exactly like a second job. You wake up on a Saturday morning and instead of just staring at the ceiling, you have this massive, invisible, glowing quest checklist hovering over your head. If you think about it, if you're into your fitness, the first thing a lot of people check when they wake up is on their smartwatch how many hours they slept. Imagine listening, instead of to your own body, to a digital device strapped to you, telling you whether you successfully slept or not. You would know that yourself. And speaking of this glow and quest checklist, think of what items we have on it. You have to go to the gym to optimize your physical health. Read 10 pages of a dry self-help book to optimize your mental health. And do 20 minutes of guided meditation to optimize your mindfulness. And if you fail to check off any of those boxes, your brain hits you with a massive guilt penalty, and in the background, it ruins your afternoon. And let's talk about weekends, because the weekend used to be the ultimate safe zone. It was the save room like we had in Resident Evil. You walk through the door, the relaxing piano music starts playing. Absolutely nothing can hurt. You can just sort your inventory out and chill. But now, the modern weekend may as well be a war zone mob. It's just a different, more aesthetic PvP arena. You log on to social media on Saturday morning, a massive mistake by the way. And what do you see? You see everyone else supposedly crushing it. You see a guy you went to high school with who is now somehow a high performance executive life coach posting a reel at 5 a.m. He's standing in a painfully pristine kitchen drinking a green smoothie that looks exactly like wet cement, talking directly to the camera about how sleep is a poor man's tax and how the grind never stops. You see influencers posting perfectly curated morning routines where they wake up without an alarm, journal their gratitude in a leather-bound book, do 45 minutes of mindful yoga, and curate a macro balanced breakfast bowl before the sun even comes. And you are just sitting there in your messy bed wearing the exact same oversized t-shirt you wore yesterday, and you immediately feel like a complete and utter failure. You feel like you are actively losing the game of life simply because you wanted your tired body to sleep until 10 a.m. This is the psychological conditioning of the modern world functioning exactly as intended. We have internalized the relentless demands of the economy so deeply into our own psyche that we don't even need a terrible boss to yell at us anymore. We just yell at ourselves. We have become our own tyrannical micro managers. You are literally bullying yourself inside your own head because you chose to sit on a comfortable piece of furniture. It is completely tripping me out when I think about it, how entirely normal we think this behavior. We honestly think it is a normal human experience to feel a low-level panic attack coming on because we spent 2 hours playing video games on a Sunday. We use the word lazy as a weapon to beat ourselves up, to shame ourselves into motion, when in reality, laziness is usually just your nervous system waving a massive white flag like they're on an F1 track and screaming for a mandatory timeout before it completely breaks down. And of course, because the internet is a vast parasitic entity designed perfectly to profit off your deepest insecurities, the toxic self-help culture immediately swoops in to weaponize your exhaustion against you. Go online, feeling burned out, overwhelmed and guilty, looking for some sort of validation. Instead, you are ambushed violent by these hyper-intense, dead-eyed optimization bros. They look directly into the camera lens and they tell you that your anxiety isn't because the system is fundamentally broken. No, they tell you your anxiety is because you aren't waking up at 4:30 a.m. to stare directly into the morning sun while holding a kettlebell in a freezing cold plunge tub. They tell you that if you want to fix your brain, you need to ruthlessly biohack your entire existence. They want you to track your heart rate variability with a $300 titanium ring, monitor your exact REM sleep cycles with an app that charges a monthly fee, and aggressively audit your dopamine baseline or your testosterone levels. If you are treating your basic biological need for sleep like it is a fluctuating stock portfolio that needs to be aggressively managed, then you're lost in the sauce. It's absolute lunacy. They are taking the one single thing that is supposed to be the natural antidote to the hyper competitive, hyper busy modern world actual, genuine, unstructured rest and turning it into another hyper competitive metric sport. They are selling you the terrifying idea that you are a broken, inefficient machine and they just happen to sell the proprietary expensive software update for you that will fix your bugs. It's a trap. We know it's a trap. Deep down, the exact moment you start tracking your rest, the moment you start trying to do the maths to optimize your relaxation, it stops being relaxation. It just becomes mental labor. It becomes work. You are just wearing a different uniform to do a different kind of labor. You sit down to read a fiction book, but instead of escaping reality, you are mentally calculating your reading speed to hit your daily goal. You go to a local coffee shop to drink a latte, but you bring your heavy laptop just in case you feel a sudden burst of productivity you can monetize. You are never fully off the clock. Your brain is permanently hovering in this weird, anxious standby mode. You are living your entire life in the red zone, constantly redlining your internal engine, wondering why you feel like you are going to physically and mentally fall apart by Thursday afternoon. You are bleeding outside the circle, i.e. in Warzone, and you convinced yourself that being downed and waiting to be revived is just what progress feels like. So how do we actually fix this? How do we break this deeply ingrained psychological programming and learn how to relax without feeling like we are committing a felony against our own future? First, you have to embrace the most unscientific, uncomfortable solution possible. You have to actively, deliberately, and aggressively do things poorly. You have to embrace caveman logic. Our ancestors didn't have productivity planners. They didn't even have complex digital templates to track their daily mammoth hunting metrics. When it rained, they sat in the dark, stared blindly at the fire, and probably just scratched themselves on the back for 4 hours. That was the meta back in the day. And their nervous systems were fundamentally, biologically healthier than ours. You have to aggressively lower the stakes of your free time. You need to practice doing things that have absolutely zero actionable value to anyone, including yourself. Find a hobby that you're actively terrible and stubbornly refuse to ever get better at. The modern urge is to monetize and improve at absolutely everything you touch. Oh, you like painting little watercolor landscapes? You should start an Etsy shop and build a brand on TikTok. No, shut up. Just paint a terrible, muddy, ugly watercolor painting. Look at it for 2 seconds, hang it up on your fridge, or throw it in the trash. You need to create a massive, impenetrable firewall between your free time and the concept of productivity. If you play a video game, play it just to enjoy it. Play it on easy mode. Don't look up the optimal build guides. Do not try to speed run the campaign. If you're playing Call of Duty, pick what guns you think are fun. Don't try and build these meta builds and try and win every single match. Just play to enjoy the action. When you're playing a game, just wander around the digital landscape and waste time. You have to give yourself explicit, out loud permission to become completely useless for a few hours. Literally tell yourself, I'm going to sit on this couch and I'm going to produce absolutely nothing of value. That is completely fine. Now, you don't have to be as specific as that, but if you think it, that is strong enough. Second, you have to physically override the anxiety. The mental guilt, what am I even trying to say? The mental guilt you are feeling isn't just floating around in your head. It is physically trapped in your body. Your nervous system is locked in a permanent state of chronic fight or flight because you've been telling it for 5 years that if you stop moving, you will die, even if it is metaphorical. When that Sunday afternoon panic sets in, break the physical loop. Go outside. I don't care if it's hot, cold, or raining. Find a patch of grass, take your shoes off, and sit on the ground. Don't bring your phone. Don't track your heart rate. Just sit there and let the sheer, overwhelming reality of the physical world hit. It is the ultimate anti-hustle maneuver. You are just a biological organism existing on a floating rock, flying through infinite space. And when you think of that, suddenly your unread emails and unanswered calls don't seem that important. Then go lift something heavy until your arms are physically shaking. Physical exhaustion is probably the ultimate cheat code for shutting off the anxiety engine in your brain. When you physically exhaust your muscles, your brain literally does not have the spare energy to tweak about your side hustle. You also get a rush of endorphins that tell your brain everything will be okay. And your brain, after a workout, often tells you to just have a sandwich. You replace the synthetic psychological exhaustion of the corporate world with the genuine physical exhaustion of being a human being. And finally, you have to completely stop comparing your messy behind the scenes footage to everyone else's heavily edited highlight reel. You see someone posting their 5 a.m. grind set aesthetic, remember that they are literally performing for a cold, unfeeling algorithm. They set up a tripod, filmed themselves pretending to journal, picked a trending audio track and posted it just to get validation from strangers. That's not a successful life, that's a digital prison. Do not let their self-imposed digital cell make you feel guilty for enjoying your actual real-world freedom. If your personal version of a successful Sunday is wearing the exact same sweatpants all day long, eating a slightly burnt frozen pizza over the sink, and watching a movie you have already seen 4 times because the familiarity makes you feel safe, then that is a massive victory. You won the day. You successfully rested. You don't need to do the maths to optimize your hydration with a proprietary electrolyte powder every time you drink a glass of tap water. You just need to be a person. We treat ourselves like we are poorly performing software that constantly needs an update, when in reality we are just very tired animals who need to sleep in the sun and do nothing. The transition from being a kid who could just stare at a wall playing with a plastic dinosaur to being an adult who feels a literal panic attack coming on because you took a 20-minute nap is brutal. But the exact moment you realize that the pressure is entirely manufactured, that the rules of the hustle culture are completely made up to keep you stressed and compliant, the whole illusion falls apart. You don't have to play the game. You can just opt out. Take a deep breath, put the phone in a completely different room, and stop treating your free time like it is an empty corporate spreadsheet. Give yourself the grace to just exist. Be the relaxed guy. Be the guy who can sit on a couch for 3 straight hours and not feel a single solitary drop of guilt about it. The world is loud and exhausting enough on its own. You don't need to add to the exhaustion by micromanaging your downtime. Just find your little patch of quiet, do something completely pointless, and let that be enough. Till the next time, see you then.